Okay, guys, we'll kick off. If everybody can hear me. Will somebody just say okay, because I tried to mute everybody so we can understand. So if somebody can just write something in the chat box, I'm guessing you can hear me here. Cool, good. So guys, good morning everybody. It's January the 2nd. We're starting off the year with a bang, given the fact that some of the news in Europe hasn't been good regarding coronavirus, but we all know that every life in the Robert Heffernan Race Walk Academy is all about positive energy and enthusiasm and all the rest of it. So we will kick off the year with a positive message for everybody. We're going to talk first of all about a little bit of business in the academy. Just to see, basically just to introduce, Rob is on the call as well, and he's done a radio interview this morning, and he's done a training session, and it's all 10:30 in the morning. Delighted to welcome some people from around the world. We obviously have Australians representative, we have South Africa representative, we have New Zealand representative, and we have a number of Europeans as well. And I know Robert Korzeniowski was doing a training session with the club. He said he might be a minute or two late, but he's on the line as well. So without further ado, we will crack on. So the topic of today's conversation is thriving in lockdown. It's going to be a long, cold month in Ireland this month because even the schools are delayed going back and there's very little light. So we wanted to enthuse all the kids on the call and basically not give any excuse to be negative. And we wanted to get some information shared with us from people who have done it and have come through lockdown in their parts of the world. So for example, I know Australia went through 2 or 3 months of a really hard lockdown during the European summer, and I could see all the media messages around that. And I wanted them to share experience because right now life is reasonably close to being back to normal in that side of the world. So we wanted it to get shared from the side. I wanted to talk as well about the virtual challenges for the month ahead for everybody in the Robert Heffernan Race Walk Academy. Just talk about some future to give people a bit of hope because right now, you know, people are talking about no sport for a while. We'll always find ways around that in a safe environment. Then I want to get shared experiences from, I say, from South Africa and from Australia. And finally, we've got a really, really special occasion where we can have a questions and answer session with some of the legends of the sport. Robert Korzeniowski is a 4-time Olympic champion. We got Nate Weeks, who's a former world record holder and a former world champion Olympic medal. And we got Jane Saville from Australia, who has 3 children actually competing in the Robert Heffernan challenges. And Jane also is an Olympic and a 3-time Commonwealth Games champion. And I think her mother is on in as well. So we got 3 generations of Savilles on the call in 2 different continents. So just to remind you as well, if you're going to tweet or do any social media, the hashtag on this is #RobHeffRaceWalkChallenge, and please use that if you're doing anything going forward. So just to remind everybody of what the Academy is all about, it's to introduce young kids to race walking in a fun environment and to learn a new skill. We started off with 10 people last April, and we now have over 200 from 7 countries and 4 different continents. So to use Rob's profile and celebrity to make the event attractive, appealing. We wanted to keep young kids active during lockdown with no sport or school happening, and we wanted to share some knowledge of best practice among the coaches of teenage walks. If I could ask people just to mute themselves while we're talking, it'd be great. Anyone who's not muted, just so we can have it a bit better. So first thing first, we've done now 2.5 months of challenges. We took a break over Christmas. While everybody's paying attention before the messages get lost with all the legends of the sport are speaking, I just want to give you an idea of what we're doing for the next month of January. The under 8s to 11s, we have 51 athletes in that age group academy at the moment. We want to get them off 1.5k by the end of January. They've done mostly 600 and 800 meter walks. So I did that they would do a 1k walk within the next 7 days. That's the challenge for them. The pace is slower than what they were doing until now. But we want them to concentrate on proper technique, and that's the key thing with every single pair of challenges. So under 8s to under 11s is a 1k walk. Under 12s, under 15, we have 88 in it, and their challenge will be to walk 2.5k by the end of January, but it'll be in a step-by-step process. So their challenge week is to walk 1.5k, and you'll send me the distance and the time usual by the end of the week. And then for the older kids, we have 2 athletes in over 15 to under 19. I want their target to be to walk 40 by the end of January. So for week 1 for them, it'll be 2.5 in the next 7 days. So I'll send this all to your coaches. Just wanted to say it to all the kids when they're on the call now at the moment before lost and all the other messages. Future plans for Academy. One of the targets we had was to have competition going forward. So we're going to run next weekend an introduction to race walking, judging and rules. This is going to be a very basic course. This is targeted at parents, at coaches, and even at the athletes themselves to learn the rules of race walking. And provisionally booked for next weekend. Confirm it afterwards when I get some feedback from everybody in terms of what works best in terms of time-wise. And we want to include Australia as well and ensure they're part of it. We got really exciting stuff coming up as well. We're going to do circuit training for young athletes. It's going to be led by Marion Heffernan, who's the behalf of the Robert Heffernan dynasty in Cork. She's going to do at least 1 or 2 circuit sessions on Zoom in her sitting room, show everybody what can be done in lockdown. If facilities closed and the gym's not open and the track's not open, you can still do stuff home. And it's going to be a great opportunity for everybody to Marion Heffernan doing the circuit training in front of her sitting room. And it's only targeted towards the academy. So again, it's a real privilege for everybody to be part of the academy. And we're going to do one other Zoom as well by the end of the month. So plenty to look forward to. There's no reason for anybody at all to be down in the dumps about lockdown. We've overcome way worse than that before, and we're going to do it again. So we really want to start off the new year in a positive light and in always looking for solutions and not dwelling on the problems as well. Just to give an idea of what we're planning for sure with the academy, specifically targeted towards the Irish athletes, we're hoping to organise a squad session similar to Athlone in February when restrictions are eased somewhat. We'll have to play that by year, but the first opportunity we get together and have squad training and some competition, we'll be doing it. So keeping it going all through January. We obviously want to provide feedback to coaches and walkers on a year basis. We want to increase the number of competition opportunities. So one of the things that we've realised in the academy, we've learned from listening to the coaches and the kids are, our sport takes a lot of training, 3 and 4 days a week. There's very few competitions. So we want to have more low-key competitions around the country where, people can go and have a low-key competition on a track or on the road, have judging there. So at least we'll have trained all the judges, all the parents to be able to understand what the judges are looking for, give the kids more opportunity. We're looking at what they are in other sports, whether it's football or some of the team sports. They don't train as many days as athletics normally, and they have more chances for competition. So we're hoping to grow that in the future. I mentioned before the numbers in the academy. We had 10 winners last April during the first lockdown. Grew to 40 by June. We had 2 to 10 between October and December, and we're planning to grow the number of participating walkers to 100 plus by the end of 2021. So really drive the numbers forward, make it attractive, make it fun, and make the competitions a lot more valuable and not just to have what we would have had in the past in terms of processions and things like that. And then we want to add value to walkers and coaches and clubs over Ireland, but also to have the international link in to Australia, New Zealand, to South Africa, to Spain, and to Poland now with Robert as well on the call, and really treat and have the athletes linking up together in a time of lockdown when they can't have competition. So we hope it's attractive to you as the athletes, the parents, as the coaches, but there's a lot happening and I'm really grateful, not alone for Robert Heffernan for giving this time, but all the coaches. We've got 15 Olympics in our experience in Ireland among the coaching team, and they're all prepared to give time and energy to the kids. So we're very privileged to have those kind of numbers in the country. So just to finalise of what we need from you, we want some fun, we want some enthusiasm, we want the kids to be willing to turn and learn a challenge. We want you to be able to train hard and listen to your coaches. Race walking is a technical event. It's not all about going the fastest. Without looking at the rules, you've got to have proper technique to be a walker, and that's why we're always emphasising the good technique. We want you to want to improve yourself. And then finally, we all want dreamers. So whether your target is to win into a provincial or a state or an All-Ireland or a national medal, we want you to do this journey with us and to improve yourself and improve your self-confidence and grow your network of friends, because we've got people now from 15 or 16 counties in Ireland, but we've also got 7 countries. So, we saw from the challenges last November how people were comparing their times to other athletes in the country, and it's really good opportunity from that point of view as well. So that's the introduction from my side. I'm going to now see if Marissa is on the call, and I'm going to make her a co-host. So I'm going to just stop sharing this for the time being, and I'm going to see if Marissa's on, and I want her to introduce her. Let me just one moment. Let's see, Marissa. I don't see Marissa or Carl. Yeah, and there's people. Yeah. So right, I'm going to let me get this. Is Carl on the call from South Africa, or is Murray on the call to come in? Or even the Australian guys? Is Fraser, Saunders, or Caleb on the call from Australia?
Yeah, Caleb here. There's a few messages coming through on WhatsApp, just sort of let you know. I know that that Rob, it looks like Jane Saville's trying to get in now there as well. Oh, she's trying to help Rob get in. So, Pierce, you might want to unlock it. It's been locked by the host.
Oh, dear, how to unlock this. Okay, I'll make sure I unlock it then. Right.
Yeah, people saying it's been locked, so they can't seem to get in. So
it's unlocked now anyway. So hopefully that's the WhatsApp then. I don't know how that got locked. Yeah, well, listen, I'll unlock it while we're speaking, okay? So I see Fraser is on the call. Fraser, do you want to, let me just make sure you're a co-host on this, and let me just introduce you to it. So make host. Good. So let me just introduce Fraser, guys, before he takes the call. I'll make sure everybody gets in after that. So should we? Okay, so Fraser Saunders is 16 years of age. He's a tall guy. He's 1.96 meters tall, and he's been walking 7 years. So he started walking obviously at the age of 9. So what we'd love you to do is to share your experiences of the first lockdown. Tell us what it was like training in Ballarat, which is just outside Melbourne. Tell us what it was like linking up with your coach, and just try and explain to the group here. It's an informal group, so we're fellow athletes as well. Just try to explain to everybody how it worked on side, and how lockdown happened, and obviously then how you out of it in the Australian summertime. So over to you, Fraser. I hope you can unmute.
Yeah, all good. In Australia, quite harsh at the start, so tracks closed down. One-on-one coaching, no group sessions. Races were cancelled for months, and it did get quite cold because it was going into winter, and I find it just helpful that to have a program so it felt like you're working towards something rather than just feeling down in the dumps or aimless. You just kept going with your consistent program, and that was good.
What was the situation like at races in Europe? Basically, the Australian winter time is like the European summertime. So can you just describe exactly what it was like in terms of locking? Apparently, you had a really strict 1K zone around your house or something like that, or how bad it was and how you continued like that.
Yeah, there was a radius. You weren't allowed 5Ks out of your zone, and races were cancelled until sort of springtime. So for quite a few months, it's pretty harsh.
And what was the ending of it out? Like, were you able to train your own? Were you able to train with a group? Did you meet coach? Did you meet Darryl at all? What was it like on your side?
Well, it was mainly one-on-one. They limited it to one-on-one for most of the time. For about a month, you couldn't see your coach. You had to train solitary, but then slowly reintroduced group training, so it was good.
And did you link up with social media? Were you linking up Zoom or on WhatsApp? Or what if you could go back into now with all your experience, what would you advise our guys to do?
I linked up with Darryl through calls, sending videos of my technique, and he constantly critiqued my technique and told me what I could work on for my next long walk and stuff like that. So sending videos and connecting that way is a good way to keep your technique in check.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That's something that the academy has done, that we started with kids who had never walked before, and they sent us videos, and we had back Robert and I and a few other coaches, and that's what gave them the knowledge as well. Darryl, if you were there, can you come on and just explain how you managed it all, coach in lockdown with a group of athletes? And I know you coach in Ballarat, Geelong. So over to you there. Just tell us how you managed to keep them all motivated during a really tough time.
I think the important part, can you hear me?
Can you loud and clear, loud and clear, Darryl.
I think the important part I found was communication. And I know with my athletes, I did ring a lot and talk to a lot. Email, and just discuss it with them and basically say it's not the end of the world, and to be positive all the time and work through it. And most of the kids, some kids took it well, others were a little bit harder because they couldn't go and see their friends. But I think it was very, very positive in the way that just the communication in general, working out a plan of attack with them, and giving them ideas, talking to them what they can do and saying, oh, we can do something different. This could be like a pre-season, and we can work this and do this for the next 3 months. So to take their mind off other things, because of course as well, they were actually at home as well. So there was it was good for them to get out and communicate. And I think it tended to work well. It worked really well.
No, listen, that's great to hear. So the communication is a big thing, I think, for all of us. We all have WhatsApp. We can all set up a Zoom call. You know, we might do an academy call once a week just to keep people engaged. There's no cost to it. Exactly what every single person is doing at the moment. They're at home, they're completely locked down. So you picked it Saturday morning. But there's ways around, and I think what you've said is exactly right. As a coach, you can set a plan, you can set checks with the athletes, see how they're getting on. You know, even every few days, the athletes themselves in videos. And we had lots of people trading on their driveway back in last April when it was a hard lockdown. So it's a really good positive message from Australia. So thank you very much, Fraser and Darrell. I want to go now from Melbourne to South Africa to Carl and Marisol. So I've made you, Marisol, Marissa, sorry, made you a co-host. So can you hear us? And let me just introduce, let me just 1 second, I'll share screen. Yeah, so Marissa, are you there? Can you hear her speak?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good. Well, first of all, let me just introduce you, Marissa. You're very, very welcome. I should have apologized at the start for all the variations of English that we're going to hear. You're going to hear my accent, and you're going to hear all Heffernan accents, which are different. And we've just had Melbourne in Australia, and now we're down to South Africa. So, Marissa, we apologize for all of our English art. But I think your story is a really good story. So you started off with a PB for 5K of 31 minutes and 43, and I was talking to your coach, Carl Meyer, yesterday, and he said what your PB was when he discovered you maybe 2 or 3 years ago, which is 6 minutes per K pace. And under his coaching, you developed on from that to become the African youth champion over 5K, which is an incredible improvement, for girls starting off at your level. And then you represented South Africa Youth Olympic Games in Buenos Aires in 2018, and you finished high school now. So I think a lot of our people on the call could relate to that. And I would love to hear when you won the African Youth Championships, and it's a brilliant achievement by you. But I know as well, things are a little bit different in South Africa insofar as you don't live close to your coach. So it's already complicated even in a normal life. But I'm going to hand the floor now to you and Carol. Can you explain how you managed during the hard lockdown in South Africa and how you communicate with your coach? Because you're so good insofar as there's no excuses. Everybody can use an excuse. We don't have the best leads. I don't have a great coach. My coach lives far away. But you've overcome all those problems and you've gone on to have success at African Championship level, which is, a fantastic achievement. Started off at the base you were at 31 minutes for 5K. So hand it over to you. Lovely to hear from you, and you're very welcome to the Robert Heffernan Academy.
Thank you very much. Okay, so our coach made a burpee challenge. We had this group. We have our group of training partners. And on this group, you will send your burpees of the day in. So how it worked was, I think you had to do 3 or 4 sets of a certain amount of burpees. And then each day you add how much burpees you think you can add. And then you send it on the group. And then also you send a video of your last set so the coach can see you did it right. And then we had this mini competition over our training partners. So our coach kept track of how much you do, and then he ranks us. So at the end of the day, you can see where you stand between the training partners. So we had a mini competition. And then later on, our lockdown extended. And that's when we started to do things like squats and shadow boxing and some planking combinations. And that was also a competition, Javier. It was also a competition.
Great. So it's actually a really simple concept. Obviously, you're doing walking and you're doing your distance work like everybody else. But Carl introduced exercises just to make the competition among the group of walkers and coaching who are all of a similar age. I think that's important because one of the things we did with the chat was every week we sent out the rankings and see the kids were where they were from one week to the next, whether they go down. And we had loads of stories of kids saying, I have to get fitter. I want to be part of the challenges. There was no guilt at the end of it. There was no pressure, no exposure on the track. It was just per competition. And I think that's what probably, puts all in common here is just that level of competition. If Carl is there, Carl, come in and explain how you managed it as a coach as well. And thanks, Marissa, for that. But Carl, over to you if you can unmute yourself. I hope I've made you host.
Hi there. Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear, Carl, and you're very welcome. Just to introduce Carl Meyer, actually, Carl helps Irish walkers a lot with due training in South Africa. So he's been a big help to Robert Heffernan and Jamie Costin and Alan Loughnane and all the Irish elite athletes. So he's a great contact when lockdown ends and you've all that money saved up that you haven't been spending in pubs and restaurants, going on a warm weather training trip to altitude in South Africa. So put that in your area for when lockdown ends. But Carl, just tell us something, because I think Marissa told a great story there, and it's so basic and it's so simple. But I know your workers are all spread out over a longer distance in South Africa. So if you could just share experiences as a coach, it'd be a great help.
Yes, yeah, it's quite a challenge for us, especially during the lockdown as well. Our hard lockdown was difficult for the guys. Some of us, like myself, we had 100 meters around the house, so doing 50, 70, 100 laps around the house was not a pleasure. But athletes like Marissa and some of the other guys didn't even have that opportunity of walking around their property because they were living in a complex. So they weren't allowed to even stroll in the complex, and that is why I gave them the challenge of doing some static exercises like the squats and the burpees and combinations of planking and things like that, just to keep the body going and so on. And when the hard lockdown was lifted and we could go out in the streets, what the guys experienced is that they didn't lose a lot of the endurance because the burpees kept them going, and obviously keep the focus away from the negative of the virus and so on. I think that was the whole purpose behind it. So right now we're back into our third level of lockdown again. Luckily, we can still train on the roads. Marissa had this morning a 90-minute session on the road, almost 16 Ks, with quite a low HR. So we're quite happy that we can continue with our training preparations for later this year. So, Pierce, you're welcome to ask questions. I don't know what you guys want to know from us, except that,
Yeah, thanks. The big message I wanted to come from you guys, because you're now in the summertime in South Africa and in Australia. So this is your competition season. We're in the kind of cold, dark days of winter in a lockdown. Really, it can be quite a challenge. And a lot of our kids will hear lots of negativity around the place now about, oh, we can't do anything, we can't leave the house. But I wanted you guys to demonstrate, with a bit of imagination and what you can do in a lockdown, because when we were doing bit competition over the summer, you guys were down in your winter. So you came out now and there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I think, the experiences you've shared, because it is challenging in South Africa as well, because you told me you're after 200 and 300K living away. So you obviously have to use technology, whereas most of the kids in Ireland were coached locally. So there's an opportunity to meet up and at least can do WhatsApp videos. We can do strength and conditioning training at home. We can do distance challenges, which is what I said at the beginning. And I'll share that with everybody now after it's the ones who missed it. And I apologize to people who are lost. But I think the message we've had from Melbourne and from South Africa has been, over it. Don't gross by negativity. Keep positive. Find a solution. Coach to plan ahead and give messages, and then just to monitor. And it's just like any coaching program, any business actually. It's about the coach and the leader monitoring the training.
Oh.
Is there any questions, guys? We'll open the chat box if anybody wants to ask any questions, because it's great to have the experience here from Melbourne and from South Africa. One other point while we're waiting, Brett, do you want to join in on what you did in Sydney? If Brett Madison, because I know you're on as well, I can see on the call. Do you want to join in and explain how you did it Sydney?
Yeah, thank you. Can everyone hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Yep.
Yeah, so look, for us, I mean, very similar to Fraser and Daryl. I think Scott, obviously from down in Melbourne as well. I guess the restrictions for us and me being a teacher is that we had a bit more flexibility. Like our kids were still at school time. So as a teacher, I was still teaching during the day. So we had to be upskilled real quick on using Zoom or FaceTime or whatever sort of technology that we had. So also to that, I mean, in our state, I'm part of a sports high school as well. So Caleb is at a sports high school that's really, really close to where I live. So with the restrictions and lockdown with us, we had a certain amount of kilometres around us that we could still meet up one-on-one or we could give instructions. So we could still go to certain venues. Unfortunately, they locked the track and I have no doubt, they locked the pool and they locked a lot of venues. I know that Melbourne had a lot of locked venues as well. So our local got locked. So we just had to think outside the box. So we hit the roads, the footpaths. There's a lot of boardwalks along the beaches. We just had to make sure that we stayed in the restricted areas. I think as a coach for my squad, and because I used to see them daily through the corridors at school, that interaction with all their school friends, their squad, teachers, that I think just the fact that they had to go into an actual lockdown and couldn't leave unless they were going to the shops or going somewhere essentially with their parents, and their parents are reluctant to do that. That started to get to some of the kids that I was coaching. So by week 3, I think it was about 12 weeks, it went over a school break as well. Some of the kids got a little bit, I guess, down, a little bit antsy, but as they the restriction eased, we could have 1 to 3 or 1 to 4 groups. We met up. I made sure that I met up with them as coach and got 3 together and we did a session together. So that was probably what some of the things that work with us. I don't know. I'll let Caleb talk about some of the things for him.
Yeah. So I feel like with the lockdown, it was obviously a lot harder because we're so used to working with our group, and so the first thing was that social aspect and having to motivate yourself to work on your own. But I feel like having a program really helps. So when we were in our lockdown, if we had a program and we were sticking to it every single day, you have to follow that. You can't give yourself the excuses and you just have to stick to it. That really helps stay motivated. And and communication was another thing. So we were constantly in Zoom calls with our group, calling our coach, asking what we were doing. It was so we didn't lose that communication aspect. So we still were staying motivated. And with our actual training, we were building for 3 weeks, working on training, and then we'd have a time trial at the end of the month. So we were still working towards something, so that it wasn't like we were training towards nothing with no competitions.
Yeah, that's a really message, and thanks, Caleb, for that. I think the other message that come out from there is look at your athletic club. You look at hurdlers, you look at jumpers, long jumpers. They all need the track. Sprinters need the track. Walkers don't. The roads, we got the footpaths, we got the parks. We don't need the facilities that the other athletes in the club need. So there's no excuse for our guys getting out and training. I think the big message I got from there was, constant communication. So that's WhatsApp, Zoom, getting them together as a group on Zoom, having a plan on a day-to-day basis. But I think a big one for me, getting out of all of this, is to have an end goal. But right now in Ireland, we're looking at no in-season, so there probably isn't going to be formally organised competition for us until May. So the academy will fill a gap, and as soon as the restrictions are back to what they were when pods of thinking can gather, we'll together again and we'll have competitions, because there's no excuse for us not to have competition at all. We can use parks, we can use woods, we can use tracks, and we want group to grow. We want to keep the kids focused. So that's certainly what we'll be doing going forward. Just see, is there any questions in? Yes. Scott Nelson. Scott, do you want to just talk on that? So let me I'll unmute you here. It was fun to mute. But Scott Nelson is a New Zealand Olympian who lives in Australia. Scott actually set up for myself and Costin to go to Australia, and he set up accommodation for us back in 99 and 2000. So he's really good. He's also married to an Australian Olympic walker, and we train on a pathway named after his wife, actually, believe it or not. And his wife also came to Ireland, and Perry Williams down in Kilkenny, who's on the call as well. So there's really links with the guys on. But Scott, if you want to unmute yourself, do you want to just give the experience from a school teacher's point of view before we go on to the legends of the sport. Sorry, you're not one of the legends, Scott, but you're as good as. So if you mute yourself, you can talk. You're on mute, which is a lovely thing to say. Couldn't shut you up at the beginning. Yeah, you're a co-host. You can mute yourself anytime. There you are. Put them all into your Scott, as you used to say always.
Just that I was online with the kids from school all the time, a little bit like Brett was talking about, like, you know, we were locked into a situation where all the classes were online. So for kids that were in their home, doing all their school lessons one-on-one or in small group sessions online, it was pretty samey. You know, it was a great change of pace initially, but a couple of weeks in, it sort of got to be a little bit not so inspiring. And I went with, you know, some of my sport background and said, okay, well, come on, let's do something different. And we were doing different things. You know, we were growing plants and doing all sorts of other bits and pieces along as an aside. But one of the things that the kids started doing was drawing things with chalk on the pavement outside, and we started turning that into a circuit. So they were doing physical things and then uploading that to a Google Classroom and sharing it with one another, and then changing their circuit and doing different things, a little bit like Carl was talking about with, you know, some burpees and some planking and different things. But they were doing skipping as well. They're getting skipping ropes out. They were doing all sorts of things that they had finding things they had at home and introducing that and sharing it. And so the imagination went rife and kids got active doing different things all over the place. So and being able to upload video it, upload it and share it with their classmates was really quite exciting. And you know, you just never knew what you were going to see from day to day. So I thought that was really brilliant. It just gathered momentum once we introduced it and started. So that was a good one. I don't know what the weather's like for you guys where you are, or, you know, even in our winter, we can get out on the pavement or in the driveway. I'm sure there's winter days that you can't do that in Ireland, but I don't know whether there's a garage you can drive the car out of and, you know, chalk up the ground in the garage or something like that. If the kids are keen, then it's just a different one.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. And a big one from that is the sharing videos. So we've been sharing videos from last April, really, various stages of technique and its videos. We've now set up the Facebook page, which I think most people are members of. But I'd encourage everybody to share the videos of the kids training. No matter what they're just post it, because the video that you share is obviously going to make the kids more confident about themselves, but it motivates the other guys as well. It just keeps the link there that people meet up at the competitions and they know guys from the video as well. So no, I think, Scott, I think that's a really message as well. And what I'd say to everybody is, before we go on to the next section, if anybody has any ideas or suggestions of what we can do for next month, and this lockdown might be longer than a month, please share them all, because we all have time now than we had. So it's easy to get on a Zoom, it's easy to get a WhatsApp call or whatever it is. Share any suggestions that you think would help your squad, and we're happy to do it if it works and put suggestions out. But I suppose the key we will have as a group, we'll have a weekly challenge with a weekly ranking page. It's open to everybody on the group. And, you know, that has served as a motivator because the numbers are so big. There's nearly 200 kids doing that every week. And we want to invite more and more in. I know Robert Korczynowski's on the call, and we're going to start doing some Polish athletes as well. So it's a bit of fun for you to see where they are in the ranking list. We make it relevant, and that's why we've gone for a bit of distance this month. It is the winter training for the Irish athletes, so it'll be a bit more distance focused as a bit more speed. But we also have to be aware as well that every in the Robert Heffernan Academy today, I classify as an advanced walker. Constantly going to get beginner walkers coming in, so we have to divide it probably into two different lists. But unless there's other questions, guys, I'm going to move on because we've got a series with people coming up next. So just one moment while I share the screen and introduce people. And thanks for your time as well. Share screen. Hope you can all see that screen yet. So a couple of guests to line up, and just to introduce them there, number 206 on the right-hand side is Robert Korczynowski from Poland, and I'll introduce him in a moment. And number 116 left is Nathan Deeks from Australia. All of the guys in that picture, including Jefferson Perry's our Olympic person. It was just a photograph I found with Korczynowski and Deeks in it. This is the photograph of Jane Saville from Australia. She was 1134 competing in the Sydney Olympics, and she won the medal in the Olympics. And I included this photograph for the girl behind her, number 1136, is called Lisa Sheridan. who actually competed in the World Championships for Ireland back in 1993. And her uncle is Jim Sheridan, the famous movie director as well. So she went to Australia and competed for Australia in the Sydney Olympics as well. So Robert Kowalski has 4 Olympic gold medals. He's widely regarded as the greatest race walker of all time. He also won 3 World Championship gold medals and 2 European Championship gold medals. He's going to come on and share some of his experiences. So very warm welcome to Robert from Poland. Nathan Dees, the 2007 world champion over 50K. He also won an Olympic medal in 2004 in the 20 walk, and he's the 4-time Commonwealth Games champion, and he's set a world record for 50K of 3 hours and 35. And he also walked 1 hour and 18. He's Irish all-comers record holder for 20K, and he's agreed to come on the call and share some of his experiences to keep people positive. And then we have also Jane Sapp, who many of you will know and heard of. She's the 2004 Olympic bronze over 20K. She's the 3-time Commonwealth champion. And more importantly, 3 of her kids have now joined the Academy Challenge in the last month, and they've improved greatly as the weeks have gone by. So we're really delighted to have Jane on the call, and her mother, I hope, is on the call in Sydney as well. Jane is in Spain with her husband, who's a professional cyclist, and he's a team for one of the cycling teams. So I'm going to invite Robert Heffernan to the call as well. Help out with this. We're going to start with Robert Kowalski because I think you'll start with always with the greatest ever. Robert, you're very welcome on the call. It's a thrill for us to have you on the call. We were hoping, Robert, you would maybe tell us some stories of your career about times that were really challenging for you, times that were really difficult, and how you overcame the challenges and turned negative situations into positive. So if you can unmute yourself, Robert, you're very welcome to call. You're a co-host. You should be able to unmute yourself, and I'll hand it over to you and hear us.
Project is really extraordinary, and I'm really delighted to be part of such a forum. So my sport career has started a very long time ago, in the time which can be compared to current situation, but not globally. My country was under a war state. The clubs were very limited in their possibility to practice in the stadium, gym. So there is a war everywhere. But we overcome this situation thanks of the small groups training together, and not really aiming big goals, but trying to establish the very local sort of competition or connected to the regional exchange. So now we live in global world. We can connect like today example shows continentally. But I think we all learn during the lockdown time, live in small unities, and everyone has a different experience regarding the local regulation regarding COVID limitation and possibility of practicing. But I think what is really crucial when we work in tough time, it's to find a next door friend, next door contact, the most relevant coach, friend, and we can talk globally. But what really works, it starts locally, and if I could send a message to all of us. Please do the best what you can do in this such a condition you have, because the bad times it comes by repetition. So today it's COVID lockdown, tomorrow can be something else, and so it helped me very much. I think we can see today's time like another opportunity, paradoxically, for race walking and walking itself. So we are all limited, but not more than during the war state. Of course, our health is in danger, but I think with the new vacuum new vaccination process will come back to normal very soon. The opportunity I see in this time is sort of nobilization of sport again in society, because the sport was available for everyone as a common good. Now it's a luxury good. I right this morning I finished a training with my club, because we, being an official club, part of a national federation, we can practice during the lockdown on precise locations on stadia. But never ever parents or kids were so committed in training like now. Never ever people practicing occasionally amateur jogging, whatever it is, were looking for sort of free to use activity as a walking is legally practice during this time. And fortunately, parks in Poland are open. So we were closed totally March, April, and we reopened in May, but it's open. And I think it's coming to the point. Now we live like ideal situation for the future of the race walking. So the public awareness of mass activity is very high. The World Health Organization recommendation of 10,000 steps sounds everywhere. So move, because when you work home office online, so you don't move. So the best way to move, the best way to be active is walking. It's our role consists in the showing people how to walk actively, how to perceive the walking as a sport as other sports, and be close to the race walking environment. And on the other hand, we have a sport like athletics, where walking can be practiced and as a easy to be practice sport in the parks, and as our colleagues from South Africa said, on the roads, it's possible. So we can really benefit of this time, the tough time, to raise importance of the amateur walking on the walking itself, and build the walking environment during the COVID restriction time. The idea of the challenges, 1K, 1K and half, the short challenges for kids is brilliant. It's really corresponding with the athletics spirit, track and field spirit. Because when stadia are open, it's fine. So we can do it. But on the other hand, we should inspire the parents and the adult people to overcome this tough time with their activity. But just I'm coming to the end. When parents ask me, Robert, what I can do to inspire my son or daughter for sport, my answer is only one: do the same. Do with him. So we can do everything for kids, but if we don't do something for their parents, really upset of tough time, it will never work. So I just begin a discussion, but this is the way how we overcome obstacles now. We try to mobilize whole families.
That's a great message, and I think that's one that really can resonate with the group on the 2nd of January for New Year's resolutions. Well, Robert, can I just ask one more question? You know, you went on and won 4 Olympic golds, but you were also a walker in teenage years. What were you when you discovered that you were grace walking, and you know, what was it like as a teenager? Just that these kids here understand that, you know, you were like them at one point in your life as well.
Could you why I really joined race walking?
No. So what age were you when you started? What age were you started race walking? Yes,
it's not clear. I was 15, just close
15.
to 16. But my generation, in generally, was starting the high-level sports a bit later, because we are very active. I would say the cordial playing in multi-sport, and the specific sport were chosen somewhere about the late college or high school. And also it was also related to the war state in Poland, and in 83 we are starting to emerge for a war state, and I was 15. It took 1 year in the real race walking before I changed, before I progressed from the really last position, because on my first Polish championships, national championships, I finished last, and the second last overlapped me. And then 1 year later, I win the national championships. But what is very important, I never joined a race walking group. I never joined the walkers itself, but I was a part of athletics club. And what is, from my point of view of today, it's really relevant, because we grow up with athletics environment, with whole respect, with other events, with a possible transfer from middle distance running to walking or opposite, with the whole kind of training, multifunctional training. I was doing hurdles for practicing my rhythm and fitness for walking at a certain time, of course, not for the competition. But it gave me so much, even if I started practicing walking very late, in very quick time, I was prepared as a complete track and field trained walker.
Thank you, Robert. And again, that's a really strong point. Most of the children here from the Irish clubs would have all been running cross country over the winter until December. But because of the competition, the cross country competition ended in lockdown, Robert and I have decided to start up the academy challenges again, just to give a focus to that athletes. And we never expect to grow to what it is now. But it was just, we spotted a gap in the midface because the cross country season had shut down early. Clubs weren't training as much. Rob, do you want to ask any questions before I go on to Jane and Dixie? Rob Heffernan.
I'm just, I'm smiling and reflecting, because everything that Robert's after saying, and I can see Jamie smiling as well. He's completely infected my brain with his mindset, and I'm just going, this is where it came from, you know. And he's so correct in everything that he said. And I'd have them similar philosophies at home by leading example with my kids, and you know, he said it all there really, you know, and it's brilliant. And that's the big message that we need to bring on here, that athletics is part of the athletic community. It's not just race walking, is not separate to the athletics. No different to my Cahill can come out the road with my boys and start race walking, and he's playing soccer with Ireland. You know, the sport is respected when the athletes are good. And I think the resounding message here with everybody, and Robert tipped on it again, is that it can be done, you know, and we did it last year, and we'll do it again this year. And Robert, it's great having you on the call, and you know, and obviously my history with Robert is well documented, and he was a huge influence on me. So it's lovely having him here as well today. Yes,
Robert, big jink way of Ireland to Robert. I want to now move on before we open the questions, and please send questions to the chat box if you're too shy to ask. But I want to include both the Australians now, Jane Saville and Nathan Deeks here, both hosts. But you know, both of them are Olympic lists, and both of them are, you know, multiple Olympians and Commonwealth Games champions, etc. But both sort of bring a different role now. Jane has 3 children who started the challenges to go, and her mother coaches a group in the, you know, Dixie's gone down the career now and is one of the top legal brains in Australia and beyond. So Jane and Dixie, can you come on the call and just, I want you to talk about, you know, positivity. I want the kids, you know, these are in a tough time. There's going to be a lot of negative news around them. The schools aren't going back, maybe it's not negative. We're joking they can all be full-time off now. We're going to keep fueling with the challenges. But Jane, can you talk maybe first of all, even as a mother as well as an Olympic medalist, and how you got the kids involved, and what you would do to keep the kids positive in a line environment? And greetings, Jane.
Yeah, look, we're in Spain and we probably had some of the toughest lockdowns for 3 months. We weren't allowed to leave the house. And most people in Spain live in an apartment. So I'm helping coach the group here in my small town near Valencia. And it was hard because you couldn't even go out for a run to the shops. You couldn't walk to the shops. I got away with it. I rode the bike to the shops a few times and didn't drive the car. But for the kids, you know, we set up activities in the garages. We did Zoom calls. I even did some Zumba classes online, just trying to keep the variety and keep kids active. And I agree, as Rob Heffernan said and Rob Korzanowski, that you've got to lead by example. And, you know, every day we did something. We challenged the kids. We do skipping, you know, out. And we were lucky we've got a small front yard and a backyard. And but most people here were in apartments. So we were trying to motivate the kids by, you know, they were skipping in their lounge rooms. The one kid was doing high jump on his lounge on the sofa. They had an elastic band across the sofa and he was jumping over on the sofa there. So, you know, I think it's important to motivate the kids from the top and enjoy the times. A sports career is not an easy career, and any elite athlete that's on this call knows that, and Deeksy probably more than anyone. You have good times, but you have some very tough times, and there's injury times. So you've actually got to learn to adapt to the circumstances. And so one of these for athletes now is the lockdown, but any time during your career you could have an injury, and it means you can't race walk, or you can't do specific training. So you've got to learn to adapt, and this is just one of those tests. And I think having goals and having, you know, whether it's a burpee test or a skip rope jump test, you know, little things like that make a difference to get through every day. Just get through today for tomorrow. Really important to have goals and motivate yourself that way.
Thanks, Jane. And just to say as well, Jane, you know, started off as a teenage walker as well, and I think we're top Australian at one point in your life as well, Jane. And just moving on to Nathan Deek. Nathan started off as a teenage walker in Geelong, which we've got a number of athletes on the call here from Geelong. He got a World Junior medal as an 18 or 19-year-old in Sydney 1996. He went on 4 years later, Olympic Games at Sydney, to finish top 8 and moved to 20K and the 50K, which is an incredible achievement for a young guy. He eventually won his Olympic medal in Athens in 2004 and his World Championship medal in 2007. But there's lots of ups and downs in your career as well, Deeksy. So first of all, to say welcome. He changed inner date he had tonight to make time to be on the call for everybody. I think it's from Canberra in Australia. Appreciate it, Deeksy. He said he might have a bottle or two of wine in him. So if he slurs his words, we'll just forgive him of that. But Deeksy, lovely to have you on the call. Haven't seen you in ages. Can you just a couple of stories from your career, Deeksy, about just when, you know, Billy, when there was a lot of darkness around, and how you overcame it, and, you know, how you use your coach and friends and things like that just to turn a negative situation to a positive?
Well, I have to preface, well, thank you for such an introduction, Pierce. I don't think that can be sort of beaten with anything, but I think I have to preface it with that I feel a bit guilty because everyone's talking about this difficulty with lockdown they have, and I'm actually on holidays at the moment at the beach up in northern New South Wales. So I'm about to dash home tomorrow before the borders are closed. But yeah, as both Pierce and Jane alluded to, yeah, I think I probably went through a lot of my career, probably more injured than not. And having to obviously cross train and do other things rather than obviously getting out on the roads or on the track and doing lots of running and race walking. But it literally comes down to adapting to different times and just setting yourself different goals and just sort of working through what you can do in the different sort of environments that you may be stuck in. And I think a good example of that is often, and Jane can sort of reiterate this, often when we traveled, that you might not always have a gym. So we would take something like, and we're talking about the days before TheraBands were even introduced. So we'd take a bike tube away from it so we could do some exercises and things like that. And you'd find different things instead of weights, maybe some tomato tins or something that with a little bit of weight in it to then be able to do your exercises and your training, just to adapt to really to the environment, as I said, that you're in. But as I alluded to before as well, it definitely just comes down to just setting different goals, doing what you can at the different times. That means that you can't, if you're stuck in a situation where the lockdown may be 5 kilometres circumference around your home, then there's sort of no issue with being able to go out sort of 2 kilometres out and back for to try to get your kilometres up. just to sort of do something and to keep your mileage ticking over and to keep that endurance going, because although it might be hard at the time, it's obviously not forever, and it's just the situation that we're in the world at the moment, and something that we're going to have to adapt to. But if I can also allude back to the time, Pierce, when you talked about in the introduction to World Juniors and the mid-1990s, at that time, in a very similar situation to what a lot of athletes are undergoing at the moment, I was actually coached by Yvonne Moline, who was a great Australian national junior coach who unfortunately passed away last year. But Jane was also coached by her and in Sydney, but I was, as Pierce said, I was in Geelong, which for people that don't know, it's down in Victoria, just outside of Melbourne. So it's about 700 kilometres away by road. So back in those times, I was coached by correspondence in that by Yvonne, but it was obviously before the times of the electronic age that we live in. So much of my coaching was done by fax, by speaking on the phone a couple of times a week. So very rudimentary and very basic sort of things compared to what we have these days. But it was something that I got through. It was, as I said, just keeping that lines of communication open by weekly phone calls or bi-weekly phone calls. Just going out and setting the motivation for myself to go out and do the training by myself, because obviously wasn't part of a group going out every day. My group per se was in Sydney, so it wasn't in Geelong where I was. But yeah, as I sort of said, just keeping self-motivated, just keeping those little goals, and just knowing that at the moment there's obviously going to be an end point, but we've just got to get to that end point.
Yeah, thanks, DC. I think you're absolutely right. You know, the first and foremost, every kid who's on this call has already won because it goes in sport. So, you know, they have a responsibility now, positive about it. They go back to school, they're going to come back, or their friends are going to come back maybe a bit negative after Christmas holiday. You know, the kids on this call here have already won by choosing sport and having a goal. And even the fact that they're all on the Saturday morning and getting inspiration from the legends of the sport, you know, will inspire them for the year ahead. And I think it's been a brilliant because it has showed, you know, that the people at the top always find a solution. So it's easy to get negative and it's easy to complain and moan about, you know, no track facility, can't see my coach, can't see my friends. But there's always a way around that. And even now with the academy here, we're here to provide a little bit of an infrastructure, motivate you know, the young walkers, the coaches, to stay involved with it, because it is unprecedented times. It's one generation time, you know, and all the people just would say, whether it's, you know, Jane, whether it's Robert, whether it's all we're teenage walkers and all got it through, and are all now parents and people working, and we're all still friends and we're all still in contact. We would hope as well that was part of the network created with the academy here. So unless there's other questions, I'm conscious that we're on call for an hour and it's probably enough to help. If there's not any questions in the chat box, or I'm happy to unmute people to speak and have an opportunity. What I would say, I'm going to hand it over to Heffernan to give the closing remarks. But what I would say to everybody on the call, you've got my email addresses. Please send suggestions, send comments. We all need a boost this month. We all need to be better connected. We all need to be, you know, more positive with each other and feeding off each other positive energy. Please send suggestions. I'm gonna this call is recorded. I just see there's a message on it. I'm gonna put this call up on Facebook page just so everybody can access the call as well and keep people inspired. But if you have any suggestions, just notice that Jane suggested it without knowing it, that she's going to do a Zumba class for everybody for the week. Well done on that, Jane. We really appreciate it. You're on the list. That was my one me DVC.
Dancing, Pierce. There is no way in the world.
So it's you and your three kids there, and I can see them.
It was in my garage.
The parents have to show example. So it's great that you volunteered to do a Zumba class, and we're really looking forward to that. But if there's no questions and no more suggestions, guys, I'm really just that we took up people's time. It's very late in Australia and New Zealand. It's been really uplifting for me. It's the 2nd of January. We all get excited around New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. These are the hard times, so back to work and back to school. It's been a great start to the year for everybody. I'm going to hand it over to Rob Heffernan to say the final words. And then please get in contact, give us your feedback, and we're very happy to do calls going forward. Thank you all for it. Rob, over to you.
Thanks, Pierce. Oh my God. Just to try and summarize it, to Pierce, thanks so much for putting all of this together. I know that you feel the same as I do, because it's so exciting for me to be here. Like when I look back to the start of my career, lads, a little bit older than the kids here, Pierce and Jamie went to New Zealand and then went on to Australia, and they were sending me paper articles about Deeksy and Jane. And it was so exciting for me to actually get to meet them afterwards. And they were real people and they were so supportive. And like, there's so much stuff coming through my head now, because like when you look back to Sydney, what Jane went through in Sydney, the coronavirus was a drop in the ocean to what she probably felt coming into the stadium. And then she went on to win an Olympic medal. And Deeksy was such a huge hero to me. Like, these stories are just coming into my head. In London, when I won an Olympic medal in London, when Deeksy was obviously coming to the end of his career, him encouraging me in the race was just a testament to how big of a man he was and how he encouraged me coming through. And even when I won the World Championships in Moscow, he rang me from Australia and I couldn't believe it, because he understood what I was going through, and it was such a lovely time to get a call. And then Robert speaking there, is he molded my whole philosophy and everything. And you know, so guys, for us to have that without the virtual world, we sourced it out ourselves, whether it was me, Jamie, Pierce when we were younger. So for the kids here, I think, you know, this lockdown, it's not that negative, you know. And I think big words what Robert said to me when I was a lot older than ye. He said, you know, Robbie, you were very talented. I don't like being called Robbie. He's the only guy who got away with calling me Robbie because I was afraid of him. Respectful, fair. But he said, you know, you're too distracted by the lights. So now with this lockdown, all of the lights have been taken away, lads. And you can just focus on training, getting fitter, getting stronger. And when the vaccine kicks in and when the world opens up in the summer, this whole group collectively will have such a massive story to come out and go on about how you stayed positive through the whole thing. And I guarantee it will stand to you for the rest of your life. If you don't end up race walking, if you want to run or play football, but to have that attitude, this is a huge opportunity now. So, you know, and just to summarize it on that, there's a huge support network here. I think we can grow it. There's some amazing people here. And for me, I'm still nervous seeing the likes of Robert and Nathan and Carson and Jane come on the call. And I'd like to thank them so much. So, lads, I think there's going to be a huge year ahead. There's huge support here. And just thanks to all of the coaches and thanks to everybody for getting involved with this. And obviously the massive amount of work that Pierce is doing as well in the background. It's absolutely brilliant. And I think this story is going to get bigger, lads.
Thank you, Robert, as well. Just to say, you know, it's the way in life. We're all here today. Final words for the Heffernan and Race Walking Academy. The reality is Robert has 4 kids. I have kids. We're using sport to raise our kids, to give them self-confidence, give them self-esteem, to show them the value of hard work, to show them that if you work hard, rewards. Exactly how, you know, most of us were raised, and my dad called, and that's how I was raised. You work hard, you get the rewards. But Robert, you know, this academy's name is honoured. He puts in work into it. He's world champion, you know, he's Olympic medalist, European champion. He's the most successful Irish athlete this tree. You know, I can say all those. The last night we were talking, and he said, God, I can't believe the big names that are coming on the call. So even New Year's Day, he's thinking, shit, Jane Saville, Nathan, Robert Korzynowski are all on the call tomorrow, and he was nervous about coming on the call. That's what happens in life. You know, kids getting it before races. You know, we all get a bit nervous. My wife said, well, I was preparing to put last night and I was no more mood to do it. And I said, this seemed like a great idea 2 days. It didn't seem like a great idea when I was trying to pull it together and make sure that he was aware of what was happening. But it gives us great energy. You know, it's a really good, positive, and that's all this group will ever be. It's about finding solutions. It's about making friends, about connecting with people around the world. It's about building self-confidence to kids. It's building their self-esteem. That's what this group is. It happened by accident. It was born in a lockdown a year ago, nearly April. We have thrived. We've made great connections. You know, we're all on a WhatsApp group. We're all on Facebook. Everybody supporting everybody because you're competing against the sport ultimately. I just say thank you all for your time. Let's keep doing this, guys. You know, we're going to hear lots of negative crap in the next month or maybe longer, but this can source a positive. Give me suggestions for a better time. Next Saturday morning, because I want to include the Australians. And I felt it's the 2nd of January, and some days are kind of a day where people go back to work. If they're back to work, let us know what works best. We'll try and link up again next weekend for that introduction to judging. But I want to open it up as well, more interaction. It's just a bit hard when you got about 150 on the call, give or take. But you've been a great audience. Send the checks in the post. Look forward again, and my bank details will appear at the bottom of the text. But listen, guys, thank you all so much. See you next weekend. Send all questions. Have a great weekend. Cheers. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.